Hey, it's producer Mark, and don't forget to download Sunday Sharp so you can go to Apple, Spotify, KCMOTalkRadio.com, wherever you get your podcasts. I've been hosting it all NFL season, and now we're down to two teams. It's the Chiefs, it's the Eagles. Last week on the show, talked about how both those teams got there, and this weekend we'll be talking about who will stand on top of the podium at the end of the game holding the trophy. Super Bowl LIX, Chiefs, Eagles, get some prop bets as well. It's Sunday Sharps on KCMO Talk Radio.
Well, there's still some common sense in national media ahead of the big game on Sunday. Good morning. Happy Red Friday. The biggest Red Friday with Super Bowl 59 right around the corner. And yes, there is some common sense left in sports media when it comes to your Kansas City Chiefs. I'll explain that coming up here in a minute. But shout out to everybody who helped make yesterday's show possible. We were down at Chicken and Pickle in Overland Park. Fox and Friends was down there. Steve Ducey was back home in his state of Kansas, and he was broadcasting from there. And I'll tell you what, it was an awesome time, but I was fried. And it was a bad day for me to be fried because my wife had one of like her 4 haircuts she gets during the year. Just happened to be scheduled. Mark, you know how it is. They schedule these haircuts like weeks or months in advance. Mm-hmm. You can't move them, man.
And you kind of forget about them, too.
You do. You kind of forget about them. Turn your mic around, by the way. I think it's facing the wrong direction. There you go. There you go. I'm like, why does Mark sound like he's in a tunnel back there?
Yeah, they were messing with my mic yesterday.
Oh, man, these engineers. You'd think they know what they were doing, but they don't. But, yeah, that was a long day. But I'm glad it worked out. Shout out to our buddy Jasper Mirable for helping making that show happen. And Chicken and Pickle folks were outstanding. My first time at the Overland Park venue, and they do an awesome job down there. Really enjoyed everything that they offer. And I see that Steve Ducey has the morning off today. So yeah, he apparently was fried yesterday too. But we're back at it because, of course, Sunday is as big as it gets in this town. The Chiefs are trying to pull off history. They are trying to win a third straight Super Bowl. And a theme that we've talked about this week is I believe the Chiefs' hatred is based in nothing more than people don't want to see greatness anymore, and they want to be permanent victims. So watching the Chiefs lose, for some reason, makes them feel good. And that wasn't the case in a pre-social media era. No one felt this way about Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls. But for some reason, with the Chiefs, they do feel that way. Now, the Patriots are different because they were cheaters, and they were from Boston. And frankly, Boston's an easy city to hate. But the Chiefs, it's never made any sense. And Mike Greenberg of ESPN, he's been there forever, 25, 30 years. He's been a fixture at ESPN. He put it very well, and he basically backed up a theme that we've talked about all week here on KCMO Talk Radio when it comes to the bizarre hatred of our own team, the Chiefs.
We get so mad about the littlest things in our culture now, and the problem with that is there are things to be genuinely worried and mad about. But we lose the ability to decipher which one of them really do matter because we get involved in nothing. So people are down on the Chiefs now because of a bunch of things that are nothing in the big picture. You're upset because they show Taylor Swift on television for a total of 60 seconds out of a 3.5-hour broadcast. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Andy Reid is like a big teddy bear. I don't know that there's anyone more lovable than that guy is. Patrick Mahomes is on his way to being probably the greatest player in the history of his sport, the greatest quarterback in the history of his sport, and as far as I can tell, a pretty likable fellow. I'm not sure what it is you would dislike on its face about him. They are a ridiculously good team, and they are doing things that we have literally never seen before. I'm not sure why people are telling me I should be getting tired of seeing this greatness.
I'm not sure why people are telling me I should be tired of seeing this greatness. That's the only part of the quote there from Mike Greenberg of ESPN on the Pat McAfee show that I disagree with. And the reason I disagree with it is because, well, no one wants to see greatness anymore. If you're great at something, what do people say? What do people assume today? Whether it's in sports, music, business, doesn't matter. I must have been born on third base. Must have cheated. Must have gotten a shortcut. Must come from money. They just start making up reasons for why you must have had some kind of success and they didn't. That's what we do. Social media has made that infinitely worse, but that's what we do in America today. We don't look at somebody or something and say, wow, I'm watching something I've never seen before. And that's what we all might be doing on Sunday. And you got to pinch yourself because it's potentially going to happen with your team. And for those of you who were part of that 50-year drought, to now be sitting here saying, is my team potentially going to be winning a third straight Super Bowl, something that has never been done? Yeah, it is amazing. It is greatness. And it's, I admit, difficult at times to not take for granted. This was part of a conversation I had yesterday on Kansas City PBS. We were recording the Weekend Review show that airs tonight at 7 o'clock. And part of the conversation was, is there a sense of, not fatigue, fatigue is the wrong word, but almost malaise where people are like, yeah, we're back at a Super Bowl. Yep, this is what we do. We go to Super Bowls and we, usually win them and the whole thing. Maybe a little bit. What do you think, Mark? Is there a little bit of that going on around town? Do you get that sense that there's some of that happening around Kansas City?
No.
No? Not in your world? No. You think everyone's as fired up as they were for the first one in Miami? I don't think they are.
No, I don't think so.
So there is a little bit of that settling in.
A little bit. It's kind of like what Mahomes said. The first one is always the best one.
Yes, that's true.
I do see everybody wearing red still. So
yes. I mean, I don't think the Red Friday enthusiasm has waned at all. I agree with you there. But it's human nature. When you've gotten to something, as often as the Chiefs have gotten to the Super Bowl the last few years, there's a little bit of that goes on. There's no doubt about it. But it's still greatness.
Well, my reservation would be based on, I feel like people are counting the egg before it hatches here. There seems to be a lot of talk. So my reservation is more on fingers crossed and walking on eggshells.
And going into the game, not expecting the win, but hoping for the win.
Hoping for the best.
Hoping for the best. Well, the best is the win, right? Isn't the best
Absolutely.
The win? Well, that's something now that you got to look at if you're a Chiefs fan and say, don't go into this thing and just say, hey, we're the Chiefs. We win these games by a field goal. That's what we do. Because this Eagles team is and can be dangerous. There's no doubt about it. So now as we kick it off on a Red Friday on KCMO, I'm not sick of the greatness. I know nobody in this town is sick of the greatness. And for anybody who is, well, guess what? They might be a Cowboys fan. Oh, my gosh. The amount of trolling, I got some Cowboys fan in my mentions on Twitter. And I'm like, bro, you're a Cowboys fan. Give it up. Relax. You hate the Chiefs because they're simply not what your team is and hasn't been in 30 years. And that's what a lot of this is about. Instead of saying, I know my team is not where I want it to be, but gosh, I get to watch something historic here. It's my team stinks, therefore I have to root against a team that's really good. So you're going to root for the Eagles if you're a Cowboys fan? Really? You're going to root for the Philadelphia Eagles if you're a Cowboys fan to own the Chiefs? That's like the Mexican restaurants closing down on Monday and not making money to try to own Donald Trump because he's kicking illegal immigrants out of the country. Who's really getting owned here? Look in the mirror. The man in the mirror is the only person you are owning on this one, or the woman in the mirror, or the they, them in the mirror. Whoever's in the mirror is the one who's getting owned here. That's it.
I can liken the phenomena maybe you speak of to like when I get ready in the morning. I'll be in the bathroom. I've got the lights on.
Careful, John. Careful.
Lights, nice and bright.
Careful.
I don't realize how bright those lights are until I walk down the dark hallway back to the bedroom, tried to not to wake up the missus, So right now we're basking in that light and maybe not quite as aware how bright that light is.
It's funny. I turned down the dimmer in the kitchen this morning because I was told that sometimes it feels like Arrowhead Stadium when somebody walks into the kitchen when I'm done at about 4:30 in the morning. So I try to remember that. I don't always remember that. But I know this much. When my dad visits, it is always Arrowhead Stadium at 4 in the morning somewhere in the house.
Yep.
That's just how it goes. That's how it goes. It must come with age.
Tough. Get a helmet.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it is an exciting morning. We are going to have Kendall Gammon next hour. Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe. Harris Faulkner, Fox News, going to be checking in just before 8 o'clock. She's fired up for the Chiefs. And then our buddy Nick Haynes in studio at 9 a.m. 913-408-7957. I want to get the pulse on how you are feeling this morning as we kick it off on a Super Bowl Red Friday on 95.7 FM KCMO. We're streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. On the news front, I was very disappointed by somebody in this town. I will tell you who and why next. I really didn't want to do this morning. I don't want to do this, but I'm never going to BS you, and I'm never going to come on the show and avoid a news story because I don't want to talk about it or because I don't want to offend somebody. It's the news in Kansas City, and you know what? We're going to cover it, and I'm just going to let it rip on what I think about it. That's what we do, and it's going on 7-8 years now of doing that here with you on KCMO 95.7 FM and streaming all morning long on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Mayor Lucas, we saw him yesterday, and he was down at Chicken and Pickle. Now, I will defend the mayor before I tell you why I'm upset with something he did yesterday. On our Facebook page, we posted photos on the KCMO Talk Radio Facebook page of yesterday's event with Steve Doocy from Fox and Friends. The mayor came down, he did his interview with us, and then he went on Fox and Friends. And there were people on our Facebook page saying, this was in Overland Park, and he's not the mayor, and he shouldn't have been there. Okay, well, I actually don't have a problem with that because they are the Kansas City, Missouri Chiefs, okay? Kansas City, Missouri is the hub city where the Chiefs play football. The event with Steve Doocy happened to be in Overland Park, Kansas. That's where it got set up at Chicken and Pickle. Does anyone really want to hear from Kurt Skoog about the Chiefs in that situation? I'm not knocking Kurt Skoog. He's been a guest on this show. He's a fine man. But just because they picked a restaurant in Overland Park doesn't mean the mayor of Kansas City, Missouri should not be the one to speak on behalf of the city if you do want to talk to a politician. If anything, you should maybe get on Fox for not picking a place in Kansas City, Missouri, but whatever. It was a great location. It was a great spot. Who cares? I mean, in this case, we're all rooting for the Chiefs. We're one big happy family right now. We can go back to bickering on Monday or Tuesday about, the state line. But for now, we're all Chiefs fans. It's all good. And he is the mayor of the hub city where the Chiefs play football. So I had no problem with that yesterday. But there were some people on our Facebook page upset with it. And I also put the photo of Steve Doocy and I up on my Instagram at Pete Mundo. You can see that there as well. But what I will say is the mayor finished up with us, and we didn't get a chance to really dive into the conversation I wanted to dive into. We'll do that during a slower week because he got pulled away for Fox. I got big time by Fox yesterday, but it's okay. They're good friends. We're cool with that. But I did bring up the fact that Quinnipiac had that poll that had the Democratic Party 26 points underwater in popularity right now in the country. There's a 57% unfavorable view of the Democratic Party right now. And I asked the mayor about it, and to his credit, he leaned into it, and he's like, hey, that's why I got to talk to people like Fox News. I actually think he can do good for his own party in getting them on the straight and narrow. I believe that. But I said that yesterday, and then he lets me down. He lets me down on the back end because he gave the State of the City yesterday. It's kind of like the State of the Union. I think Emmanuel Cleaver started these in Kansas City, Missouri. A little pomp and circumstance for the old Rev. And they've been going on ever since. And whatever, that's fine. But let's be honest, no one's really watching them. I mean, just be clear. Please. I didn't watch it yesterday, okay? I watched it back at night when I was prepping for the show. But, I'm not sitting there, it's high noon, time to watch the State of the City. Said nobody ever. Okay. I mean,
we had a party, some Jack Stack in and everything.
It did look like a good time for the people who were there. But I listened to it last night, and I was very, very disappointed by how he opened up the State of the City. You got to read between the lines here, but the mayor does not need to be knocking the new administration in his opening 30 seconds of the State of the City.
The month of January was a very long year. In the course of the last few weeks.
And I hear that, and I'm like, he's probably talking about the weather, right? I actually laughed. I was like, oh, that's a good line. January was a very long year. Yeah, the weather stunk. We had snowstorms. He's got to clean up the city. It's one big mess. I'm like, that's a good line. But then It continued.
Over $30 million of grant awards to the city were put in jeopardy. 30,000 federal workers and contractors in Kansas City and our surrounding areas were made to feel anxious about their career futures. And too many of our neighbors were made to feel fearful. Fearful about their ability to remain in our city and to thrive. Fearful that programs to bring more Kansas Cityans to an inclusive table of shared opportunity, like where I just was before with Variety KC, could be gutted by broad actions that marginalize millions from the right to a fair shot.
Oh, break out the freaking violin. My gosh. Okay, yeah, there are federal workers around the region who, yes, if you're not good at your job and you don't know what you do, it's the old clip from The Office that we played the other day. What do you do around here? Trying to make up something that sounds really important. Yeah, guess what? The federal budget needs to be pared down. Sorry, that's a fact. There's 2 million federal workers. We've got $36 trillion in debt and a $1.8 trillion deficit. I know anybody in government doesn't like to view themselves as having to do what the private sector does, which is when you're not meeting your budget, you got to figure out a way to cut it. That's how the real world works, and that's what's going on right now in D.C. And then the immigration line, we've got neighbors who are fearful. No neighbor needs to be fearful right now unless you are here illegally, in which case you have knowingly broken a law of the United States. And yes, that is something that under this administration you should be fearful for, especially if you're somebody who is here who has committed a crime while being here. Then yes, you definitely should be fearful. But guess what? Kansas Cityans can also be fearful of having to live in neighborhoods where people may be here illegally who have committed violent acts and have not been caught or deported yet. They're allowed to feel that way too. And guess what? Those people don't live in my neighborhood. They don't live in the mayor's backyard, his neighborhood. They live in neighborhoods of the poorest and most vulnerable people in Kansas City. So I heard the opening 30 seconds and I just threw my hands up and I'm like, come on, man. I thought until Fox News pulled them away, we were going to have this great conversation yesterday about rebranding the Democratic Party, but you can't start a state of the city by going after the Trump administration. You just can't do that. You're becoming part of the problem that you insist you want to fix. And I think he wants to fix it. So I'm like, who the heck wrote this thing? And did anybody review it before the guy took the podium yesterday? Like, what are we doing here? You know, we just wrapped up the conversation around how the mayor gave his state of the city, and 30 seconds in, he's bagging on Trump. It's like, man, I get the city didn't vote for Donald Trump, but there is a mandate from the American people, so let's be careful. Let's pick and choose our spots. The state of the city is simply about what's going on in this town, what are you doing about it, and how are you going to improve things over the next 12 months? That's it. Let's not open it up by ragging on Trump here, all right? And that's part of what happened yesterday. I was very disappointed by that. But one of the major issues where you are seeing a huge cultural shift is on the issue of whether or not biological men should be competing in women's sports, right? And 2 days ago, Trump signs this executive order, and it was a home run. Now, in Kansas and Missouri, it wasn't as big of a deal because we already have state laws that were signed going on 2 years ago by the legislature against biological men competing in women's sports. So it really wasn't about us in Kansas and Missouri. It was about a Trump executive order that applied to, other states, NCAA. So suddenly now the colleges have to figure out what to do about this. That's what the EO executive order was about a couple of days ago. But either way, it was a huge deal. It was one of the top stories of the week, as the executive orders keep just kind of cranking out left and right. And with that, CNN, I played this clip yesterday, and I was blown away to their credit that they played it. But it also tells you how if you are a mayor in a major American city here in Kansas City or anywhere else for that matter, you got to realize this is not 2020. This is not 2021. the American people have woken up from their woke slumber.
I think these numbers are really illuminating on this topic because I just think there's such a clear trend among the American public. So transgender female athletes in women's sports, only 18% of the country says that they should be, in fact, allowed to participate in women's sports. Compare this to the opposition. I mean, my goodness gracious, 79%. You rarely get 79% of the country to agree on anything, but they do, in fact, agree on the idea of opposing transgender female athletes in women's sports. But it's not just the here and now, Laura. It's not just the here and now. What we're actually seeing is a trend on this particular issue, and it's going in the direction of opposition. So take a look here. Okay, transgendered female athletes, and amongst those Americans who oppose them in women's sports, back in 2021, it was 62%. A majority, but, you know, not anywhere close to a ginormous majority, right? A clear majority, but not a ginormous majority. But then again, you look here in 2025, you see it at 79%. So it's not just that the majority of Americans are opposed to transgender female athletes in women's sports. It's that the opposition has become considerably larger in just the last 4 years.
And how much larger has it grown? Well, tremendously, over 25%, right? 62% in 2021 of Americans opposed dudes hanging out in women's locker rooms and playing sports against them. That number is now 79%. That's a 17-point increase on 62%. That's over 25% increase in the last 4 years. It is not even close. But amazingly, there are still some of you, and I'm seeing it right now in the text line, who are like, Pete, this is such common sense. But if I were to walk into my workplace today and say, yeah, I don't think that biological men should compete against women, people would look at me like I'm crazy. I'd have to whisper that in the corner of the office. Just know, common sense is on your side. It is. And the polling overwhelmingly is on your side. And here in Kansas and Missouri, we have had these laws in place for the last couple of years. So it's really not an issue for us right now. Now, there haven't been some massive outbreak of things to deal with on this front, thank goodness. But that's not why you make laws, right? One of the major pushbacks I've seen this week on the executive order is, you know, there's like 72 cases of this nationwide. Your point is what? I don't think there's a lot of cannibalism going on around the country, but pretty sure it's still illegal for a reason. Doing what is right is not about how frequently the wrong happens. You do the right thing because it's the right thing. And as the father of 3 daughters, I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't know about that law because what are the odds that it impacts one of my daughters? What are the odds it impacts my kids? So, yeah, we'll focus on other stuff. Nah. Especially when you have an opposition, politically speaking at least, that is literally trying to tell you something that is inherently untrue. That somehow somebody who has male anatomy should be readily able and allowed to compete against women. And I know right now, as a 3-time girl dad, I ain't down with that. And I know many of you aren't as well. Steven's in Kansas City. What's up, big dog? Good morning. Go ahead. Happy Friday.
P, you did a magnificent job yesterday. They're going to have some lame pep rally with Al Roker today, but you guys put him to shame. That was magnificent.
Oh, yesterday. Is that right? Is Al Roker doing a little thing? What, is he handed out Manjaro or something? What's he doing?
I don't know. They're going to have some liberal pep rally. And yesterday, I mean, that was just the best of Kansas City. That was just, we should have it every year. We should just do that again. What you guys did yesterday, it was fantastic. I wish I knew about it in advance. I would have driven over.
I would have loved to have met you, Steve. That would have been a hoot. That would have been a hoot, man. Bet. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
The cowards of all cowards yesterday, the NCAA flipped. I mean, the culture is changing, and that was a great clip there. I think it was Scott Jennings that said that is Trump 2.0. We're taking all the 79 80-20 issues and flipping them, and Mayor Q, the mayor has no choice but defend the undefendable, because he probably wants to succeed Frank White, or get another job. So if it's political jiu-jitsu, like on trans sports, they have to defend it. if you keep picking 80, 20 issues, and the people will just turn against them for decades.
Here's what it's going to take.
We'll be elected. It's great.
It's going to take someone, and the problem is, I was going to say Barack Obama, but the problem is he's even losing some juice now in his own party. I don't know who the face of the party is. I would still say it's Obama, but like I said, he's losing some of that juice. But it's going to take someone like him or a half dozen powerful people in the Democratic Party to say, you know what? We're done with this. We agree men should not compete against women in sports. That's what it's going to take for then the Quentin Lucases of the world or anybody else down the aisle, down the political spectrum to say, okay, all right, we're clear to at least say this is absurd and ridiculous because 80% of the American people disagree with us.
The juicy rumor in the tabloid today was that they wanted Michelle Obama to run, and now Barack is divorcing him. They thought that she was going to be the savior instead of Kamala. But you're exactly right. They have to find another Bill Clinton, and he ain't out there, and he ain't coming. He ain't coming through that door. So go Chiefs. God bless you.
Go Chiefs. You got a score real quick. Give me a score, Steve. He's gone. He's out. Mic drop. I'm not going to speak on what's going on with the Obamas. I'll leave that to somebody else.
Well, to your point, when Quentin Lucas's claim is to be the Aldi brand Obama, unfortunately, Obama is the Aldi brand Obama.
Right? That's right. Obama's turned himself into the Aldi brand version of 2008 Obama. I mean, the guy just got his clock cleaned. He had to go to bat for Kamala Harris for the last few months. I'd be hiding too. My goodness. After I dragged old Pops across the finish line there 4 years ago now. Jeez. Patrick Mahomes owning a U.S. Senator is the kind of content you need on a Friday ahead of Super Bowl 59. Good morning. Glad you're here on 95.7 FM. Happy Red Friday. The boys are all in their Chiefs red. Mark's got his Kelsey jersey on. John, what do you got on? The Mahomes jersey there, my man? All right. John's got the Mahomes jersey on, and I've got the old Butker jersey on. Let's go. Woo! That's right. We'll get a photo afterwards and post it on the KCMO Talk Radio. We'll put it on what? Facebook, X, and Instagram. How about that, Mark?
All three.
All right. You got that covered for us after the show? Now, speaking of Mahomes, this came up in the last couple of days between Trump, Tommy Tuberville, the U.S. Senator from Alabama, and Mahomes. So when Trump was signing the executive order on Wednesday to prevent dudes from playing in women's sports, he saw Tommy Tuberville in the front row, and like Trump does, he went off script. You know, he sees Tommy and something comes to his mind, and he just starts talking about Tommy Tuberville. So here's what Trump had to say a day and a half ago to Tommy Tuberville.
And Tommy Tuberville, a great coach. You know, his quarterback was named Mahomes. He was a great college coach. And I said, how good was he? He said, you don't want to know how good. He made me into a great coach. He's pretty good quarterback, right? Yeah, he was very good.
Okay, well, that's not true. Tommy Tuberville was not the head coach at Texas Tech when Patrick Mahomes was there. Now, Tommy Tuberville was the head coach at Texas Tech. He left for Cincinnati, and then Cliff Kingsbury became the head coach. Cliff is a Tech alum. Of course, he's now the Washington Commanders offensive coordinator. He's been a head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. He's an offensive whiz. He was a bad head coach for the most part. I think he had one good year with Arizona. At Texas Tech, the guy had Patrick Mahomes, and he stunk. He couldn't coach defense to save his life. Great offensive mind, though. I mean, Mahomes was putting up 60 points a game. They would lose like 63-60 to Baylor and TCU and everybody else in the Big 12. But it wasn't because of the offense. It was just because he couldn't coach defense. So Mahomes never played for Tommy Tuberville. Now, Trump might have misspoke there. Who knows? But Tommy Tuberville then got asked about this on Megyn Kelly's show yesterday, and here's what he said.
Last question. So does this mean, since you used to coach Patrick Mahomes, that you're rooting for the Chiefs at the big game this Sunday?
Well, I never even coached him. What happened is I recruited him, and then I left and went to another school. But I've got to be very good friends with him.
So Tommy walks back Trump's comments, And he goes, well, I never really coached him, but I recruited him. So Patrick Mahomes gets asked about this yesterday by the media. And listen, Patrick's not going to be the guy that just takes a big old steamer on someone. It's just not who he is. But in his very Mahomes way, he did that in a very political way.
He did not recruit me at the time, so I don't remember if I ever got to meet him or not.
You get the idea.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever got to meet him or not. Meantime, Tuberville's telling Megyn Kelly, oh, yep, this is great. Yeah, we become good friends. And don't forget, no one at Texas Tech likes Tommy Tuberville. The story goes that Tommy Tuberville was at dinner on a Friday night as the head coach of Texas Tech with a bunch of high school recruits. You know this story, Mark, as a college football fan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Tuberville is apparently at dinner with a bunch of high school recruits. He gets up at dinner, takes a phone call, and never comes back. The next morning, Saturday morning, he is announced as the head coach of the Cincinnati Bearcats. Now, when Tuberville was running for Senate, he denied this story. He says he picked up the check, everybody was done eating, and he just walked out. You believe what you want to believe. I don't believe Tommy Tuberville, to be honest. I don't care what his politics are. He may have the same politics as me. I don't care. I do not believe that story. Why a recruit would randomly make that up, multiple recruits would make that up, I don't know. And the notion that a story about a head coach actually picking up the tab and then just walking out with everybody else versus the recruits claiming that he literally walked out in the middle of dinner, left us with an assistant coach and never came back. That is just too unbelievable to potentially make up. So Tommy Tuberville, I know a lot of people in the Senate, and, he's on TV because he's the old ball coach. I wouldn't trust that guy as far as I could throw him, okay? I would not. There's no way.
You could kind of hear it in Mahomes' voice. He's told the story before. Nobody really recruited him. Like, Kingsbury was one of the only ones.
He was only a 3-star prospect.
Mm-hmm. People thought he was going to play baseball.
Yes, he was drafted to play Major League Baseball at one point. He went to Tech because he could play both sports, and then he gave it up. And his high school coach, Adam Cook, from White House, Texas, has been on this show multiple times and told that story here on KCMO. Kingsbury's the only guy who really saw something in him when it came to, top programs, giving the guy a chance. And even Texas Tech, let's be honest, is not going to be considered a blue blood program by any stretch of the imagination. But you got to love Mahomes in a very Mahomes-ish way, basically calling Tommy Tuberville a flat-out liar. Well, is President Trump rooting for the Chiefs? You tell me. You just might have seen this Truth Social post that just dropped from President Trump, and I will read it to you here, and then you tell me what you think he's doing. That's a dicey spot because he can't go anti-Eagles, right? Pennsylvania's a swing state. I know he's a, lame duck president. He doesn't have to win again. But still, he's not going to go out there and start trashing the Eagles. He can't do that right now. But he did just post this on social media moments ago, and I'll share it with you here on KCMO. Donald Trump writing, quote, "Two great quarterbacks in this game. Also, an unbelievable running back, and the absolute best tight end in football ever." How about that? Shout out to Travis Kelce. Incredible coaching. If they would only get rid of that really weird-looking new kickoff deal, which actually makes football more dangerous, they would be doing everybody, especially the fans, a big favor. Now all caps. Anyway, it will be a great game. 4 exclamation points. I'll be doing the interview before the game at 3 o'clock p.m. There hasn't been one in 4 years. Parentheses. Gee, I wonder why.
Come on, man. Such a nice man.
Oh, that's great. Now, Trump was asked this week by Peter Doocy of Fox News who he's got in the game, and here's what he said.
Guys, let's go. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Thank you.
I don't want to say, but there's a certain quarterback that seems to be a pretty good winner.
I love that growl when he gets in the I don't want to say.
I don't want to say.
But there's a pretty good quarterback. He's a winner. He's a winner. Well, he's not talking about Jalen Hurts there. I'll tell you that right now. I don't think he's talking about Carson Wentz. There's one guy he's talking about. Patrick Mahomes was asked about this yesterday, and here's what he said.
Yeah, I mean, it's always cool to be able to play in front of a sitting president, someone that is at the top position in our country. And so I didn't see that clip, but obviously it's cool to hear that he's seen me play football and respects the game that I play.
So I don't know about you guys, but I feel like that they've been coached to use that phrase, sitting president. Mark, do you remember yesterday we played the Kelsey clip? Mm-hmm. Can you, and I hate to put you on the spot, but do we have that? It's probably, you know what? I'll grab it for you real fast. I'll put it where you need it here from yesterday's show. But I feel like Kelsey used that same phrase. Here, I'll put it in the 805 block for you. Sitting president. I feel like they were coached on that phrase. And I'm okay with it. It's fine. They're just clearly not trying to offend anybody, right? That's what they're attempting to do, I think, by using the phrase, yeah, it's always great to have the sitting president there. They don't want to say Trump because if they say Trump, oh, no, we can't say it's great to have Trump there. That might be misinterpreted by some people. So here is Kelsey yesterday.
It's a great honor. I think, no matter who the president is, I know I'm excited because it's the biggest game of my life, and having the president there, it's the best country in the world. So it'd be very cool.
He didn't use the phrase sitting, but either way, they're not referring to Trump by name. I'm not insulted by that. I don't think you should be insulted by that. I think what they're trying to do is just keep it apolitical by saying it's great to have the president, the sitting president. And I'm not going to sit here and be outraged by that, and I don't think anybody should be, John.
Well, that's basically the sign of respect that you should have for the office. Because I don't really see him saying, "Oh, I'm glad Biden's coming."
Yeah,
and not because of the politics. You just don't refer to the president by the last name in that reference.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah, even if it's like, well, President Trump or President Biden, just say, "Hey, yeah, it's great to have the president there. It's cool. It's all good. We're fine with that."
I don't think anybody will be boycotting a trip to the White House if they win.
No. Maybe Taylor? Gosh, they've got to win because we've got to see this drama unfold.
No, the players at least.
No, I don't think the players will. We need the drama and the intrigue of this Chiefs team winning and going to the White House and seeing the interactions with Trump, Clark Hunt, Andy Reid, Mahomes, Kelsey, Butker.
Mayor Lucas.
Oh, yeah. You think he'll be there if they win? You think he'll get invited?
Oh, yeah. They sit in the, Alford was there last year. Laura Kelly was there.
I know. Yeah, you're right. They probably will be there. Let's just put it this way. I don't think Q's getting a lot of, prime time selfie stuff going on there. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see. Jonathan, Kansas City, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
I kind of like this because, I grew up in the 1990s, and that's one of the things that made the 90s great was, the depoliticization of sports, the Michael Jordan rule. Republicans buy sneakers too, and, I don't want to hear politics from my sports people. If I want politics, I'll go to MSNBC, CNN, or Fox. I don't need to see politics when I'm watching sports to try to escape.
I'm with you, man. I don't need Mahomes. Well said. I don't need Mahomes going out there and he's got a little MAGA hat or something under his podium and he rips it out. I can't wait for Trump on Sunday. Woo! No. Woo! I don't need that. I'm cool with that not happening. I think these guys have handled it perfectly thus far. Now, we'll see what happens on Sunday, whether or not Trump gets more airtime than Taylor Swift. I'm starting to think that Taylor's going to eke out the win there. She got 54 seconds out of 4 hours and 8 minutes last year. I still think she'll eke it out. But what we really need is to figure out a way for Trump and Taylor to bump into each other in the back end of the, suite area down there in New Orleans and have some incredible interaction that is just going to light social media on fire.
So she'll do the old, hey, I'm Taylor. Yeah. Hello, I'm Donald.
He hands her a signed MAGA hat or something. Oh, man, the possibilities are truly endless on that front. We may have to wait for the White House trip for that to happen. And that has, oh, my gosh, that has troll potential written all over it. So that's why we really need the Chiefs to win. We really, really need the Chiefs to win, if for nothing else, to see that trip to the White House, which has all the potential to be on fire. Because don't forget, they didn't get there in 2020 during that first Super Bowl because of COVID. So, oh, man, gosh. All right, well, we're fired up. Red Friday, still a lot to get to here on KCMO Talk Radio. Nick Haynes will be in studio for our Feature Friday segment on 95.7 FM. We got the jobs report that came down. 143,000 jobs added in January. Expectations were for 169,000 jobs. Unemployment rate fell to 4.0%, below the expectations of 4.1%. This is the lowest unemployment rate since May of 24, but the number came in below the expectations. Fed pause is here to stay. That's the takeaway on the jobs report. The Fed is not moving on interest rates right now, and frankly, nor should they. I said it under Biden, and for now, I will say it under Trump until proven otherwise. I know Trump wants to get interest rates down. I would not touch it. I know, he's got this idea of getting some more easy money pumped into the economy. You've got to prove that, first off, what you're doing with DOGE, what you're doing with shrinking the federal government, is going to help cool off inflation before we have any thought of lowering interest rates. And I know that the Fed doesn't want to be behind the trend, but I'm sorry. I know Trump wants rates coming down, but I'm not doing it right now if I'm Jerome Powell, especially after the jobs report right now that just came out. And also of note, the December jobs report was revised higher, showing 307,000 jobs added for the month, up from 256,000 jobs. So December was the best jobs number since March of 2024. And I'm sure people are going to argue over whether or not that's a Trump bump or you're going to credit that to Joe Biden. I don't know how much you can credit Biden with after November, because at that point, the markets and the jobs are looking forward and businesses are looking forward. They're not like, we got to hire someone because it's Biden's last month in office. Like, that's not how business operates. So kind of a ho-hum report right now. I think we're in this wait-and-see mode. You're not going to really know how Trump's economy is humming along probably till late spring, early summer. But what matters right now is that there's more optimism in the economy than there has been in a very long time. And optimism matters because that gets businesses to spend, that gets people to spend. So how they feel matters. And all the polling shows that people feel better right now about the economy and about the future of the economy under Donald Trump than they did under Joe Biden.